Okay, welcome back. We're talking about what does and does not get inherited. There's only one thing that does not get inherited, and that is constructors. And you might be thinking, I wonder why that is. And I wonder if this will make a good test question. Yeah. Okay, what are the rules for making a constructor? Well, first of them, it has public but with no return type. And then the name of the class. So the constructor must be named what the class is. Do you see what I'm saying? So I cannot inherit one called employee because that's not the name of my class. So there's a very pragmatic reason of why constructors are not inherited. It's because they're named wrong. Okay? I can't have a constructor called employee inside a class called employee non-exempt. Okay? Okay. Let's move on. Okay, on page 621, they talk about the constructors. Do you remember when we were chaining constructors with this thing? Remember that? Where we have one constructor call another constructor? We did that right here in employee. The parameterized constructor just calls the normal one because that's the one that picks up the employee ID. Cool? All right. Well, kind of sort of the same rules apply here. So instead of doing it this way, I'm going to just call the other constructor. So I'm just going to blow this away and start over. And just say super without any dot. So super with a dot means the previous class, the base class, again, using all these goofy terms, the super class. But if you just use super by itself, and then just pass first name, last name, and position, well then all I'm doing is just taking that information and just pushing it off to the constructor of the other class. And I'm done. Isn't that pretty easy? Cool. So, we need to make a change to the calculate pay thing, don't we? Because that's kind of why we're here. So I'm going to use a thing called override. Now override is not really a compilable thing. Public double calc pay like this. So all this does is it's sort of like a warning. It's a compiler directive. How's that for a term? That basically says, hey, I kind of sort of know what's going on here. Don't mess with me. I fully intend. In other words, it's not a coincidence that I have something called calculate pay here, and I have another one called calculate pay here. This is not a coincidence. So override is basically telling the machine, look, dude, I know what the heck I'm doing, okay? So leave me alone. Don't put no little yellow warning light or anything there. Just kind of leave me be. Okay, so we need to make a tweak to the way the thing works. So I'm going to start off with, double answer, probably like that. And then I'm going to do a return answer. Because remember that's how I do my things, right? You don't have to do it that way. So do I have to check to see if we're ready? That so-called sanity checking. Yeah, I think so. Is it possible that someone had no hours at all during that week, like they were on vacation or something, or I don't know? Is it possible that they would have no pay due? Yeah, I think so. Is it possible that their pay rate would be 0? No, that's not possible. So I'm going to have to ask. So if, and so let's just try something first. Let's just do PFV rate is like less than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to spit out some sort of an error message that says, hey, we can't do that. So system error, println, rate must be set. I'm not making these things very good. So I can't get there. I got a red squiggly. And it says, it has private access in the employee. Ooh, well, there's 2 ways you can solve that problem. One is I can use the method to be able to get to there. That's one way. The other way is for me to to give permissions, so to speak, for me to be able to see this thing inside my inherited class. So I have to go back to the base class where this guy is called private, okay? Right here, these guys. And I'm going to make these guys, instead of private, I'm going to make them protected. And I promise I'll come back to this, okay? Protected. All right, again, I promise. We'll come back. So now, that would work. So you know how overtime is calculated, right? So I say, if PFV hours is greater than 40, let's go ahead and do an else. Answer is equal to PFV rate times PFV hours. In other words, that part's essentially the same as our previous class. And then here I would say, this is a little complicated, and depending on how you do it, it would be PFV hours minus 40, to get how many that you have overtime on, right? Times the PFV rate times 1.5, right? Plus your base pay, which is PFV rate times PFV hour. Hey, do I need to put any more parentheses in here? Or is that going to be good enough? Yeah, remember multiplication and division is before addition and subtraction? So in other words, it'll do this part first, and then the multiplication, then it's going to skip that, do the multiplication, and then it come back. All right, let's go see if this thing worked. So let's go to here, and let's build us another employee, except this time it's going to be a different one. So, hey, what? I'm just going to copy this. Is that okay? Except I'm going to call it imp1, just to... So this is going to be imp1, 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 and imp1. Okay, instead of employee, it's going to be employee non-exempt. Maybe I ought to make it another person so you can... Jane Smith is electrician. Okay, cool. So let's run this. And so you can see their pay is different. So all we did, we took an existing class and we just tweaked it. We tweaked it so that they get overtime. That's it. Isn't that pretty easy? I didn't have to write the entire class over again. In fact, look how many lines of code I actually had to write here in this guy. I mean, I had to write, ooh, wow, I need to call the super. Okay? I did have to override the calc pay to include whether or not they get overtime. And let's do an override of the toString guy. So this is going to be kind of sort of similar. Because when I do a toString, I want to be able to see what kind of employee it is. Now this is going to be kind of cool, so pay attention here. So override, and then I'm going to say public string toString. Okay? Now instead of just completely blowing away what the previous one did, here we're just completely ignoring what was in the base class. Here what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to say string answer is equal to some sort of a text that tells you what type of employee this is. I'm going to say type equals non-exempt. And then what I'm going to do is just tack on the stuff from the super. So super to string. In other words, I'm not completely blowing it away. I'm just tacking this on. Isn't that pretty cool? I tell you what, let's do it the other way around. Let's have it so that let's start with the stuff in the super string and then add to it. That makes a little bit more sense. Maybe. I don't know. Kind of depends on your point of view. Answer plus equals type equals non-exempt. That's not how you spell exempt, but okay. And then okay, come on. And I return the answer. So here I completely ignored what was in here, and here I'm kind of sort of collaborating, so to speak. I'm using bits and pieces from the base class. So let's go back to here. And whoops, sorry. And so here I'm going to go ahead and just say int0 toString plus pay equals like that. Cool. Then I'm going to grab this because I don't like the type and change that like that. That way you get to see the before and after. All right, let's run this guy. Okay, so first name Bob, last name Smith, position his pay, and here I throw on type equals non-exempt and a different pay. Okay, is this making sense? So I didn't have to write an entire different employee class because all I wanted to do was to make a small tweak to it. That's it. Okay. Now let's go back to talking about the constructors again. We're still on page 621. All right, so here are the rules for constructors. If there's a default constructor, remember the default constructor is the one that has, some people call this the no argument or the no arg. I hate that term. The no arg constructor, it's in the book. I'm just saying the one without any parameters. Okay, the parameterless would have been a better name than no arg, but nevertheless, those guys are automatically chained. In other words, if there's one in here, it's going to go up and hit the other guy. You don't have to ask for it. So the no arg is always automatically chained. Parameterized, that's not the case. I have to specifically tell it, oh, thank you. I need you to go specifically here. Why do you think that is? Well, because if there's no parameters, I know exactly what I'm doing. But if there are parameters, I'm not absolutely certain. Maybe you put the last name first, and then the second was, change the order of the parameters, right? Right? So the machine can't help you there. You're going to have to do this. And the other, if you use the super keyword, now we've used it twice so far. Once to get to methods, like the set name, okay? And then once by itself as a constructor. If you're going to use it as a constructor, it also has to be first in line, just like the this command was, okay? Cool. Now, I'm kind of sort of getting off on a tangent here. But remember when we added the override? Well, here's another one of those little directives. And this one basically says is it's perfectly okay to call these methods inside a constructor. So this shuts it up. That makes all the little yellow guys go away, because previously I would have had a yellow guy on line 56, 57, and 58 because they said, it's dangerous for you to be calling methods in the middle of a constructor. Well, maybe in the general sense, but not in this case. So this is, line 49 is, shut up. That's what line 49 does. Just like when we did an override in this one. It was the toString guy. We put an override there. So there's two compiler annotations. I'm not sure what you want to call these things. One is to suppress error messages that we don't want. And then the other is to tell NetBeans, look, dude, I know what the heck I'm doing. Please leave me alone. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so you guys know how this works.